insurance costs. Our wastewater fund has year-to-date revenues of $1,258,422. We have year-to-date expenses of $1,299,985. And that leaves us with a negative variance of $41,562. In comparison to last year at this time, we were about $142,000 negative in the fund. And so again, you can see that revenues in this fund have remained flat from FY20 with a decrease of 3.6K. And our expenditures have decreased by $114,000 from this time last year. And that was a decrease in equipment and machinery and full-time positions, being that they were short-staffed. Do we have any questions on the summary page? Okay, seeing none, moving right along. This was the new chart that we had pulled in for the board meeting last month, and Mayor had asked, rather than comparing it for the first 6 months, if we could compare it for the entire year, kind of do an annual average and then see, where are we at the time collected. So on the first chart, this is the general fund revenues and expenditures by fiscal year. So you can see we've outlined FY12 through FY21 estimated. Our annual average revenue is $9 million and $9,031,295, and expenditures is about $8.9 million. As of January month end, the average that we should have collected in revenue is $5,268,000. We have collected $5,492,000, so you can see that we have met, that average. And as far as our expenditures, our average expenditures are about $5.2 million. For January month end, we did have an increase of 5.5. So that's a little on the higher side. But again, we have increased costs because of, the insurance costs, attorney costs, claims, judgments, and settlements, stuff like that. So we're hoping that, with the GRT and now with the state reopening, that we're going to, continue to see our GRT at least increase some so we can even out at the end of the year. So I think, being optimistic, I think we should be good. Same for the Enterprise Water Fund. Their annual average is $2.8 million, and expenditures is $2.4 million. The January average is $1.6 million. Year to date, we've collected 1.5, so we're slightly under. And with our expenditures, the expenditures through January month end average at about 1.4. Year-to-date actuals are at 1.4. So it's tracking pretty much right to where our averages are for the year. Lastly, we have the Wastewater Fund. Annual average revenue is $2.1 million. Expenditures is $2.2 million. For a 7-month average, we have $1,251,000. We've actually collected $1,081,000. And we tend to see the revenue collection a little less in wastewater. And unfortunately, we don't have any way of disconnecting folks that just have sewer accounts and, that are delinquent in those because, we can't shut them off because of, well, of course, it's solid waste. So, that's where it becomes challenging, and to be able to, collect what's due to us, and because of them only having, the sewer account and us not being able to disconnect. So the actual revenue is $1,071,000. So again, you can see that both revenues and expenditures are slightly under than the annual average or the 7-month average. Moving on to our next page, page 3. This is showing our total revenues. So as of January month end, we are at 59% of the year elapsed. You can see here in our general fund revenues, we are at about 63%. So slightly over the 59%, which is pretty good. Our utility water fund, we are at 57.5% collected. And in the wastewater, we're at 54, almost 55% collected. So total fund revenue for the general fund, $6,710,195. In the utility water fund, $1,763,214. And in our wastewater fund, total revenue collection of $1,258,422. Moving on to our expenditure page, you can see in our general fund, total expenditures $6,490,466, which equates to about 54.71% spent. In our utility water, we've spent $1,683,029, which equates to 45.76% spent. And in our wastewater fund, $1,299,985, which represents 43.1% of our budget spent. So you can see that revenues versus expenditures are pretty much tracking right on. The next page is our gross receipts tax. So looking at this for the month, and so the distribution that we record here is prior to any contracts going out to NMFA to pay for our debt service accounts or anything like that. So this is total GRT that is collected. So for the month of January, we collected $812,150. And you can see that that was an increase of about $42K from this time last year. So looking at total revenue or total GRT collected through January, in January 20, we were at $6,074,184. January 21, we have collected $6,402,539. So that's the difference of the $328,000 year-to-date increase that we have seen from this time last year on our gross receipts tax. The chart below just kind of highlights the amount that we get per category, you know, any penalty or interest that we collect. And then of course we have to, TRD manages all of this, so we pay an admin fee. And then the contracts represent any debt service that is going out of these accounts. So the bottom number highlighted below where it says total distributed, $721,342. That's the money that we actually get deposited into our bank account after all of those fees go for our debt service, the administrative costs that they charge for managing this. This is what comes back into our bank account. So total out of the $812,150, $721,000 comes back into our bank account.
Real quick, we're 2 months behind. Is that November's GRT revenue? Or
yes, that is correct. So this is for business activity reported in November, or this is the business activity in November, reported in December, and then distributed in January.
Okay, so it was, we reported it in December. So okay.
Yes. Okay, next page is looking at our total general fund revenues by source. You know, nothing new on this, as you know, but it's evident that our state taxes and our local taxes are our biggest contributor to our general fund as far as revenue sources. So state share taxes, we collect 54%. Local taxes is 34%, followed by the miscellaneous others that make up the rest of the revenue in the general fund, such as license and permits, charges for services, fines and forfeits, any type of rentals, building rentals that we have. And as far as our expenditures by source, total January month-end expenditures were $938,000. Year-to-date is $6,490,000. You can see that public safety is at 37% of our total costs, followed by the administrative work at 35%. And then we have the non-enterprise public works at 10%, community services at 8%, judicial at 4%. And so that's what makes up our general fund expenses. On this one here on page 7, this is just a comparison of revenues versus expenditures in the general fund by month. As you can see, January, we collected $1,217,000. We spent $939,000. That left us a positive variance of $278,000. But when you take the cumulative totals, cumulative revenue, $6,710,000, cumulative expenditures of $6,490,000, leaving us with the year-to-date variance of $219,000. Again, most of that attributed to increases in GRT and the Rio Arriba and Santa Fe property taxes. The next one is just a basic summary roll-up by basically by line item in the general fund. So looking at all our different revenues, comparing it to this time last year, you can see, you know, where there's increases, where there's decreases. And specifically, you will, you know, what stands out is our gross receipts tax. For example, in the first top column under taxes, local effort, you'll see the municipal gross receipt tax had an increase of 92,165 from this time last year. We also had an increase in the hold harmless gross receipts tax of almost 89,000. If you go down to the next one where it has taxes state shared, you'll see property taxes for Rio Arriba and for Santa Fe County. So you can see that, you know, as of January 2021, we've collected 411,513 versus at this time last year, we collected 143,690. So that was the increase of 267.8K that we've seen from this time last year. And, you know, and this is just kind of more informational so you can see the ups and downs in revenues and how that's being affected. Of course, definitely in our rental area, we're going to see a decline in that because we are not renting out our facilities. So, you know, we're thankful that we have our GRTs and our property taxes to compensate for the loss of all the rentals that we have and other fees that we aren't able to collect because of, you know, COVID, the recreational center, the library, the senior center. Well, the senior center is doing well, you know, for being curbside, but, you know, and those are areas that, you know, we're losing out on revenue. So I remain hopeful. So if you look down, so then we go down into our expenditures, and then comparing those from January 21 to January 2020 last year, you can see that, you know, that we've had an increase of about 152K in city attorney from this time last year to now. Also in the public safety department, increased costs of 206,000. And then in our central administration fund of about 120,000. And again, that's where we account for our insurance costs, which are the non-employee insurance costs. And of course, that has gone up as well. So looking at our, you know, bottom line versus last year, we were 134K in the hole. Right now, we're at about 220K to the positive. So that pretty much wraps up the January month-end reporting. The following budget is a sample of what we've been trying to work on, and you know, we had some meetings with Ursula and myself and Chair Benavides and Mayor, and just trying to see like how we can make, you know, reporting kind of more simplified and easier to understand and easier to read. Let me tell you, this report is definitely a work in progress. I don't think it's really what we're looking for or how I want to, you know, to be able to use the data. And a lot of that is just having to work with Cassell and trying to figure out the right report and how it needs to be reported. You know, so I worked with them. We kind of did a data dump so I could go in and do a pivot table and kind of maneuver the data and so I can present it in a way that I felt, you know, was understandable, comparable to everyone. And one of the requests that Mayor had was he would like to see all of one department's budget on one sheet. So, you know, in the budget status report that we give you, that's about 75 pages long, it's broken down by fund. Well, in each of those funds, you know, like for example, the 124 fund, we have 4 departments that hit that fund. So we have youth and rec, we have public safety, we have buildings, and we have recreation. So it's not just here, you know, take your budget. This is what it is for the department. So with this one here, and I only use PD as an example because they have a lot more of the funds within the total budget. And so the other part is, you know, it's kind of hard to break out general fund revenue because most of our revenues are derived from gross receipts taxes. Yes, we have, you know, the side miscellaneous revenues that come in, such as citations or, you know, contributions for public safety, But those are just small fractions that make up the total general fund revenue. But I wanted to point it out. So here, for example, looking at this one, we're looking at the PD, Police Department. The first fund that they have is 101. That is our general fund. They have brought in $2,150 in public safety contributions. And so that kind of represents anything that they may have done any type of training for, bringing in people, or it could have been simply a donation that a vendor, a business provided for. Normally Shop with a Cop is what we do. So that's where those types of monies go into. It's more of a miscellaneous, so you won't see a whole lot of revenue coming into that specific department for PD, just because of the nature of how it's set up. So of course it's going to look off, their expenses are $1,798,000. That's looking at the total PD budget in the general fund. So that's not a good comparison to say, okay, well, revenues versus expenditures, right? So then we move down into the 109 fund. And I listed down below, Ursa, if you can scroll down a little bit, I gave the fund descriptions of what each of those funds represent. So for the police resource grants, that's Fund 109. That's to establish an account for grant funding awarded to the police department by the Espanola Public Schools for safety resource officer, as well as the MOU for the Lowe's security. And one of them, the other one that I left out was recently we were doing transport services for New Mexico State Police. So that's where the New Mexico State Police would also fall under on the 109. So if you look up on 109, we have Espanola Schools. Year-to-date revenues expenditures are zero because we haven't performed any services for them. They've been on lockdown, closed down because of the COVID. So we haven't done any billing there. But if you look at Lowe's, we've brought in $61,619 in revenue, and we've spent out $36,577. So this is where you're going to see the money coming in, going out. It won't ever be all deposited into the general fund. And the reason for that is we want to ensure that we have tracking mechanisms in place to be able to identify, okay, well, how much did we spend on school resource officers? How much did we spend at Lowe's? Because if we bundle everything into the 101 fund, it's like everything in there. We wouldn't be able to identify the cost as easily. So New Mexico State Police, they have received $20,000 for the year to do their transport services. That I know they were wanting, Chief had talked about using that $20,000 to perhaps utilize, purchase vehicles or maintenance, stuff like that. So that $20,000 would be budgeted in the 109 fund. It wouldn't be in the 101 or anything else. It's specifically for that fund. Then we have the Fund 110, which is Burn Justice. That is the fund used to account for federal grant funding awarded to the police department by the U.S. Department of Justice for non-lethal force options and technology improvements. So that's awarded based on grant agreements. And with that, that's part of the agreement that we have with like Rio Arriba County. So we would, with the Sheriff's Department, okay, where this money is to be used for vests. So then, Rio Arriba would have to purchase their vests. We would purchase our vests and then submit the reimbursement. So that's what that fund, the 110 fund is for. Fund 111 is the DWI. So that's the Operation DWI grant awarded by the Department of Transportation, and that's for alcohol impaired driving countermeasures. And so that's an annual award, which is based on a federal fiscal year. So it's awarded every October 1 through September 30th. So it kind of crosses fiscal years. And in this case, you'll see that, oh, it's not on this one. I'm sorry. It'll be on the 122. So, and sometimes you'll see that there will be more expenditures than revenue collected. And it's just, like I said, due to the timing of when the fiscal year cuts off. The other one is Click It or Ticket. That's another Department of Transportation grant agreement that's used for basically seatbelts. So it's to conduct occupant protection directed enforcement patrols in high crash locations. So again, this is, they go out, we track our costs, we submit for reimbursement. That again is from the Department of Transportation, along with the 122, which is 100 days and nights of summer. So you can see here, there's no expenses, but we received 60K, and that could be because of the timing of the fiscal year that crossed over, that our expenses were in June 30th, but we received the money July 1. So that's where we'll have that difference. The municipal improvement, that is the revenue dedicated from municipal gross receipts tax to be used for public safety. And this is the one that I gave you the example that this fund is specifically broken out into public safety, street improvements, youth and rec, and building improvements. And so on a monthly basis, when our gross receipts comes in, we divvy it out based on these percentages that were set aside. So public safety, they get about 1/3 of the proceeds, street improvement, another 1/3, and then youth and rec get 1/6, and building improvements get another 1/6. So when you add that up, it equals to 100%. And that is mainly to be used for maintenance on vehicles, their software equipment costs that they have, and any new vehicle purchases that they may be procuring throughout the fiscal year. The public safety grants, 125. That's the grants to be used for public safety, including Federal Department of Justice grant funding. This is where we received the money for the cops hiring grant. We haven't spent anything on that just yet. I know we were looking at, I know they were doing some interviewees and testing and that sort of stuff. So, hopefully we'll be able to get some FTEs out of that and start charging to that grant. And then we have Fund 211, which is LEPF, which is the Law Enforcement Protection Fund. And that's awarded through the state as well, through the Department of Finance and Administration. And it's about $600 per certified officer. So they look at how many officers the city has, and then they do their formula. So we end up with about $36,000 in that funding, and that's to be used for purchase and repair of equipment, as well as training for police personnel. So, we're paying a portion of this, is we're utilizing this funding to pay for the Spillman technology that we just recently implemented. $35,000 doesn't go, very far, but it definitely does help. And then we have the 303 Capital Outlay. So with that, and in this report, what I was trying to do was to capture our total budget, but it wasn't working out in this report. So, I apologize, but I wanted to show you something and kind of show, this is a work in progress, and we're here to, modify it, like you said, deletions, additions, whatever we can, come up with to make it useful for you guys, because ultimately you guys are the users of this report.
Right.
And so, I want to be able to make sure that all of you have a clear understanding of what we're trying to accomplish and what we're trying to convey in this report here. The 303, so that's the capital outlay. That's to account for the capital outlay program is awarded through the New Mexico Legislative Appropriation Grant Agreements. So the police department did receive $200,000 for the purchases of vehicles. You can see that we've spent out $45,000. And all of it has been expensed. It's just the timing of when the actual expenses hit the account. And so we've already started, Diane has been working on reimbursement. So we're seeing that money come back in to get reimbursed for those expenses out. So if you look at, this is what makes up the public safety police department budget, all of these funds in here.
Thank you, Director Ortiz. One of the things, guys, that we were trying to accomplish is, number one, give additional detail so that not only the committee can understand what each fund is made of, what grants each department has, but also for the department directors and even for the public safety chair. We started with public safety because they were one of the larger ones, and Mayor kind of wanted us to utilize public safety as our first go at it. And I know that both Ursula, Jessica, the department have been working really hard. The conversations that I've had with Mayor is that, without having an actual accounting type firm, the only time we see an accountant type financial statement, or not necessarily financial statement, but P&L is at audit time. And so it's very difficult to pull all the data and get the report in the format with the level of detail that we're trying to accomplish from the software that we currently have. But at least this gives department directors and the committee a much more detailed version so that everybody can start to further understand what each fund means. That was one of the things that we wanted to include is the definition of each fund, because a lot of times, Jessica will say Fund 109 and we're like, what's that, right? And so we wanted to have those descriptions in there. And it also helps educate, our department directors. And so it is a work in progress. We hope to, I had hoped to talk to Mayor today to see if he had a chance to look at it. We were supposed to meet last night. We didn't get a chance to. We are going to meet Thursday. We'll have a little bit more of a discussion as to what other level of detail he wants to see in here, if any. And then we'll meet with Jessica and Ursula again and just continue to make additions or deletions. And if you have any suggestions, we're definitely open and would like to hear them. But just so you know, it is very, very difficult for Jessica. I think this one's been in the works for about a month, and it's just pulling the numbers is really difficult based on the type of software that we have. So we've talked several options with Mayor. We've talked about hiring an accountant, maybe just for this program to put something together and then we take it over. We've just talked several different options, and we've yet to, we want to take a crack at it first. And so this is what we've got so far. And I think it's pretty good. I mean, it gives us more detail. It lets Chief, when he looks at it, hopefully understand what he's got and where he's at, and kind of just helps keep track even of some of the grants that they're utilizing. And so I think it's a pretty good picture. I know that Mayor wants additional detail, and we're hoping to be able to get there. And it is a work in progress. So any suggestions, anything that the committee would like to see to help further understand the numbers, we're definitely open. Email them to Director Ortiz and myself, and we'll see what we can do to get you the information or to add the information to the report. The hope is to be able to get something that we can use going forward, that each department director can utilize for their own purposes, for their own discussions with their staff. And so it's a work in progress, and I think that it looks pretty good. I know Mayor wants more detail, right, Jess? But we're getting there. I think this is pretty good. I think the descriptions definitely will assist each and every one of us. So great job. I think as far as the financial report, if we could get our COVID numbers down and at least get us in the yellow and help to open up some of the businesses that currently can't open, I mean, that would be a huge plus to us. So I think, doing what we can to continue to educate the public about not just getting their shots, but about, wearing their masks and the social distancing piece is only going to benefit us. Because as you can see by the numbers, they've gone up substantially, and I think we're in pretty good shape. And I think we're in better shape than some of the other cities out there. And so, it's kudos to our community and to the education that's being provided to our community. I think if we continue down that path and we can get ourselves in the yellow, we're close, then that would be an additional plus to us and to the financials. In addition to that, we are looking at other sources for revenue, mainly revenue for public safety, to include fire and Espinal Police Department. We know that Chief Padilla also needs additional hires in his department. So we are discussing, and I am meeting with Mayor on Thursday night, additional ways that we can bring in revenue. We do have some ideas that, we think we can put into place, not as quickly as we would like, but after I meet with Mayor, maybe we can share some of those with the committee at some point. I think not only bringing in that additional revenue for public safety is the main one, just because we always want to make sure that we have funding for additional officers, for equipment, for vests, for whatever the need is, but mainly the staffing of both fire and the police department are really important to our community, because we want that safety, and hopefully we can come up with those revenue sources, at least a couple that we're working on. So feel free to call me and we can share some of those ideas. I'll know more after I meet with Mayor Thursday night. So I'll share what I can after that, and we'll just keep going. I think we're doing a great job and we're looking really good. So any questions that anybody has? Thoughts on the budget?
Make a comment. regarding for Rio Reba not moving into the yellow, Santa Fe County, and I saw one restaurant this weekend that is in Santa Fe County was able to have inside dining. And so we're going to take a hit now, people able to go to Santa Fe to eat, and that's going to affect us a little bit this month and going into next if we don't get into yellow. And again, we've talked about it, but I don't see of us creating a campaign of shopping, even when things are good, to shop at home, because how important it showed of keeping our dollars here and how it got us through this. And so we really got to focus on educating our public to, on the basics, stay home and shop home. We have it, we can provide it, and we need to ensure that.
You're absolutely correct, Councilor Ritchie, and it shows in the numbers. And hopefully for the listening public, shopping at home really, really helps our community. And so, I mean, it's a testament just to see the numbers that, that is true. And so thank you so much for that comment. I don't know if Councilor Justin has any questions or comments on this particular budget, since it is the PDs, or anything that he'd like to see added in. I don't think Chief Jimenez is on with us tonight. I know Chief Padilla is, and we'll do something similar going forward for fire as well, and for each department. That's what Mayor would like to see, although it is taking some time to be able to pull the numbers. So I don't know, Councilor Justin, do you have any comments or things that you'd like added, or that you'd like to see or have questions on?
No, actually, I really like this a lot. Gives a lot of insight, breaks everything down for us, which is great. I know, when there's more gathering of the minds, what I like to say, everybody's got their own opinion and want, different things, but I think this is great. I do agree. We need to get back in the yellow. We're only 0.2% off. Why can't we get in the yellow? But, and it's odd that half of our city's divided by 2 counties, and, they only permit, but whatever. But
it makes
it get political
for us, right?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're so welcome. Just one more question, Ms. Jess. I don't know if we've gotten any of the reimbursement for any of that overtime for the PD as of yet. I know last time I asked Director Hooker, we were still waiting on some of that funding.
Overtime for a PD?
Yeah. I think that we had submitted some CARES Act for reimbursement, had we not?
I don't believe it was any for overtime though.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't for any overtime expense.
Well, we still look pretty good then without that reimbursement.
Considering, yes, we're very thankful, like I said, for the increased GRT, despite everything that's going on around the state, but like in talking to the TRD liaison, he says, a lot of, our GRTs aren't as bad off as we initially thought they were going to be, he said. And yes, the restaurant and hospitality is taking a hit, he said, but we have, the convenience stores and the big box chain stores that are making up for this. So, as long as people continue to shop, we will continue to get our grocery receipts. So like I say, I continue to remain optimistic about, our year-end position.
And we do have businesses interested in our little beautiful town. So hopefully, if we can get some more small businesses in here, or anybody, that would be another plus for us too. So hopefully we can see that, in our future soon.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, if there's not any more questions about the sample budget that we presented in the financials, we can just go forward.
Councilor Benavides, Ron, Fire Chief Ron has a question. He was raising his hand.
Okay. Chief, are you there?
I am. Good evening, Madam Chair, councilors, member of the committee. There was some submission on overtime through FEMA. We did submit that. And then we submitted again. I believe that Jeff is still working on it.
Okay.
I believe the first round that we didn't weren't able to qualify for that, but I believe he's still working with FEMA on those numbers. So I thought I'd just let you know.
Thank you for that. I knew that there was somebody that we had reached out to for reimbursement. I just couldn't remember who that was. And hopefully going forward, if there's additional funding that comes down, our way now that the government is trying to pass the new budget to assist businesses and individuals that are hurting right now, hopefully we can take advantage of any other funding that, comes our way. So we'll have to see about that. I did see something come out today for additional rental assistance, but nothing for us, the city, to take advantage of. So I'm trying to keep a close eye on all of that. So hopefully, if I see anything, or Director Hoopler, I know he's on it, hopefully the city can take advantage and be able to assist our constituents, that are really, really hurting. And I know that there's several out there. So hopefully we can jump on any funding that comes our way. So. Okay, Ms. Ortiz, thank you so much for that. We're going to go ahead and move on to item 2, proposal to purchase Yactor. Is it Yactor? Replacement equipment, or should it be tractor? I'm not sure.
That.
It is actually a Vactor.
Vactor. Okay. Thank you for that.
Good evening, Madam Chair, committee members. Mr. Rodney is on, but he's in and out. He's having difficulty on his computer, so I'll just figure I'll help him out.
Thank you.
So the wastewater department purchased a Vactor, I want to say about 6 years ago. We leased it to pay it off. These pieces of equipment are very expensive, but they are very needed in each department. What they do with those is doing PMs on lines, on wastewater lines, on manholes, to make sure they clear any blockages in the sewer systems, vectoring up any waste that there is, only used specifically for wastewater, because you don't want cross-contamination with water. We do have 2 of them. One is an older one that's, I want to say, at least 10 years old. We tried to reach out. Mr. Rodney looked out to get the bed, which holds the water and the sewage in the back, replaced. And just to replace the tank alone, it was $120,000, I believe, just for the bed. So these machines are used. They're used daily, on a daily basis. They are upkept. They are expensive, though. We had 2, both of them broke on us, and we had 2 in Albuquerque at Pete's Equipment. They're the only people that work on them, and we had blockages, so we had to call on Los Alamos County. Thankfully, they helped us out, send their Vactor truck. They stayed even overnight, or a few of our guys had to stay over the evening to work on it. So a big thanks to Los Alamos County. Without them, we would have been in a mess, because we would have had sewage coming up the manholes, and we can't have that in our city. So we did that, and we're currently renting one. We passed through, and it's $13,000 a month just to rent the piece of equipment. So hopefully we will have the other 2 back within the month, and then get this going so we could finance this new Vactor again too. And the guys are going to be keeping on it, like I said, and planning for the future. That way, once we're financed, so pretty much once we're done with this in the 5 years, we'll have to auction it off and get another one. It's just an ongoing thing, and it's something we need to do to keep our city safe and keep things running. So I'll stand for any questions if anybody has.
No questions?
Motion to approve, ma'am.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you so much. Mr. Sola, can you take a roll call vote, please, so we can get this moved to council for approval?
Yes, ma'am. Chair Denise Benavides,
In favor.
Councillor John Ramon Vigil, absent. Councillor Justin Salazar Torres,
In favor.
Councillor John Ricci.
In favor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Okay, moving on to the next item. Thank you, Ms. Ursula. Okay, let's go on to item 3, proposal to establish fund dedicating fire fees. We have Director Hoopler, I believe.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the council. We've also got Chief Padilla on with me as well. I'm only on here because I helped do the creation of the resolution itself, and I'll let Chief speak to the utilization. But basically, this is following on from discussions we had earlier in the year to take those fire fees that we created for both inspections as well as for false alarms and potentially any other fees we might establish for the fire department in the future. To put those into a specially created fund that would then be utilized to basically do the fire prevention services, including training, equipment, material, personnel costs affiliated with fire inspections, plan reviews, arson or other fire investigations, public education, and other what's called community risk reduction programs. So we're asking that you recommend this for forwarding to the full council for consideration of the next meeting, and I'll turn it over to Chief to talk a little bit more about the fire component.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, this is kind of something I've been working on for a few years now to try to create revenue for the fire department. There is a very big necessity for some type of inspector, fire marshal within the city of Espanola that is an 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And then when we do have calls within our service area, that we respond to that. Our main focus is definitely emergency response, structure fires, so that if we look at it in a bigger picture, we are trying to collect these fees to pay a salary for a fire marshal within the city. So that means there would be a chief, an assistant chief or deputy chief, and then a fire marshal that handles public education, arson investigation, and fire inspections, as well as fighting fire. So we have 4 people on every day, which we're supposed to have 5, but one's on vacation. So if we start looking at that number, instead of just having 4, and then just an assistant chief and a chief, or a deputy chief and a chief, that's 6. And then we add 1 more, that's 7. So our numbers are starting to go up as personnel wise. We need to make that 8 personnel within the 8 minutes, 4 within 4 minutes, 8 within another 4 minutes. And that's what helps us with our ISO. Our ISO rating is right now, we take a hit every time we've had our ISO rating because of manpower. And that's our issue: manpower, training, and water. So we need to start streaming towards that. So this is one goal to do that. That person is going to be on 8 to 5 every day. And that adds another person to fighting fire if we need it. With that being said, Councilor Ritchie?
When do we, if it gets approved by the council, when will it be implemented, and what is our time frame of generating to start to utilize the funds for staffing? What's our time frame?
Well,
I can speak a little bit to some of that. The funds are already being somewhat collected. We're coding them, I should say, as they're being collected. The fees were established obviously last December, or revised and established last December. So once this is approved by the council, maybe Jessica could speak a little bit more as to whether or not we would put any fees that have been collected to date into there, or if it would only be those moving forward. But we have been tracking those fees that have been collected, so could potentially put any of those fees designated since December in this fund.
My recommendation would be that we put any fees going forward, because right now, those fees that have been deposited are currently sitting in the general fund, and that's where they have been dedicated all along. So something just to keep in mind is that, should this be approved, we're going to be rededicating where these funds actually reside. They will be pulled out of the general fund and put into a special fund, a fire fund, specifically for, these types of services that we're performing.
So we're able to go back and reallocate the money after
My-
this gets approved. We can go
My
back and pull it.
recommendation would be not to go back because it's
Okay.
already accounted for in the
That's
general
what I
fund.
was
So,
gonna say. I thought it was locked.
so my recommendation would be, once it's approved, at that time it's approved, say it's at next week's council meeting, this week's council meeting, I would say anything from there forward, or is it the pleasure of the committee, the finance committee, to say that anything will begin effective the start of the new fiscal year, July 1st? That's another option. Because we're already we're already 8 months into the fiscal year. So, do we want to do these 4 more months? Or do we want to start, do we want to switch them over immediately?
For me, I think that, the easiest thing to do is to start them immediately so that, we can start building up that fund. I don't think we can definitely go back because we don't have the approval, right? So there's no way we can go back. So we can only go forward. So Chief, did you have any other comments?
Madam Chair, I would like to talk about this position a little bit more.
Sure.
I think that it's something that, we're looking at this resolution to fund part of this, but I think that there needs to be some funding also. And I said this in a public safety committee meeting. I said it in a full council meeting, and I'm going to say it now in this meeting. We need 3 firefighters every year for the next 5 years. This is something that that really needs to be looked at, and we really need to figure this out. I understand that's a big jump. I get that. I am working on some safer grants to try to find that money to get 3 more people next year. That grant is due on the 12th, and I've been working with Diane on that. But we have, and Richard, jump in here if you want. We have on the average of 300 businesses in the city. Within those businesses, we have to make sure that those businesses are running safe. And with this, fire marshal goes out, will inspect these businesses on an annual basis and collect that fee. And not so much about the fee, it's so much about making sure that these businesses are running a safe business. Because sometimes, we need to look at fire load in the business. Sometimes things just aren't just right. So we have to make sure that they're doing that right. And I know adding a new position and adding new firefighters, it's an expense, but it's a necessity at this point. We are starting to grow. We're getting bigger. Now with that, what I'm talking about also too is when the state came in, when PED, the Public Education Department, wanted the state fire marshal to come and do all these COVID inspections on all these schools around the state, they don't have the capacity to do that. So they call us to see if we can help. So that means we can take care of our city. We can be self-sustainable to make sure that we educate our inspectors. We send them to school. We know we're giving them the right tools to do the right job. And that's where we really need to go on this. And try to, I'm looking at different avenues on, maybe Rio Arriba County wants to assist us with some funding, and we try to help them out with some type of MOU. I don't know. But I'm looking at everything possible that I can do to create this fire marshal position for the city. It is needed, as well as firefighters. We need to hire more firefighters, and I know we're growing, and I know what's going to come up is, where are we going to put these people? How are we going to house them? Well, we'll figure a way. And the main goal here is to make sure that we protect the city and these firefighters are able to go home and have a good life after they retire. So I know it's a lot, and but we need to start looking at avenues to start creating these positions. And this is just one way to start.
Yes, I agree. But in addition to that, Chief, I think that we need to remember not to leave Santa Fe County out. I think we've left them out for a lot of years now. And I think that, you know, that's another avenue for assistance. And I mean, Santa Fe County is part of our city. So I think it's time that we do what we can to continue to reach out to them and see how they can be of assistance as well. So that's something
Yes,
else.
ma'am. And I will, I have made some phone calls and I will pursue that.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else? If there's nothing else, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, ma'am.
Second.
Do we need clarification within the motion, ma'am, on when we'd like to start this?
That's probably a good idea. The only thing is, I think we'd have to start it. We can't start it until it gets approved. So if we have council tomorrow, if it gets approved tomorrow, I think we can probably put in the motion that.
I don't think it'll be on tomorrow's. It's got to be posted.
Oh, that's right. I'm so
within
sorry.
72 hours, correct?
Yeah, so it would have to go into next month, into the next council meeting. So I see Director Hubler with his hand up there.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking related to the resolution itself, we could just add the language of effective either immediately when it's adopted or effective at the beginning of the fiscal year. So I guess the question for this body would be, what is the preference of this body?
Immediately.
Yeah, for me, I think the verbiage when it's adopted works for me. I don't know what Councilor Ritchie and Councilor Torres, what's your preference?
That works for me. I will amend my motion to approve once adopted by the full governing body.
Thank you.
Effective at that point.
Thank you so much,
Second.
Councilor Ritchie. With that, thank you. Ms. Ursula, will you take a roll call vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Counselor Denise, or Chair Denise Benavides,
In favor?
Counselor John Ramon Vihil, absent. Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
In favor.
Counselor John Ricci.
In favor.
Motion passes and it's been amended to be effective immediately after it's been adopted by full council.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to the next item. If you could pull that up for us, please. Okay, next, we're going on to item 4, capital outlay vehicle purchase for Espanola Municipal Court. We have the Honorable Judge Stephen Salazar. Thank you for being with us.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Finance Committee and Finance staff. So this council passed a resolution to accept this this grant, and this is the $75,000 vehicle grant. So in the packet is a quote for a truck and a quote for 8-passenger SUV.
Oh.
And so I'm just, going through this formality to get this expenditure procured, and the sooner the better, because it's really hard to find vehicles. Vehicles are in short supply right now, and so the sooner we get this, I've really been waiting for this grant funding to come through
Motion
and finally
to,
it's through. And
To send to full council.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Ursula,
thank you.
yeah, that was quick, right? Maybe take a roll call vote, please.
Yes, ma'am. Chair Denise Benavides,
In favor?
Counselor John Ramon Vihil, absent. Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
In favor.
Counselor John Ricci.
In favor.
Motion passes to move to full council.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Counselor,
you.
Miss Chair Benavides, this is Javier.
City Manager, did you have a question?
Just a statement and to clarify. So just really quick, Madam Chair, members of the Finance Committee. So items number 4 and number 5 don't require an action item to move to full council. This is a formality primarily to follow in accordance with our procurement policy that requires a purchase of any purchase over $25,000 must go through the Finance Committee. So with the passing of the bar in last full council's meeting for this specific items, I think that we're good to proceed procuring these items for Judge Salazar. So just that's my comment, that we do not have to have a motion to move these to full council for final approval.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. Do we want to just go through item number 5, the tractor purchase for Judge Steven Sanchez in Municipal Court, just so that we could see those numbers maybe?
Yes, Madam Chair, that'd be fine to go ahead and proceed just as a formality.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So this is a purchase. So if I can just go back a tiny bit, I tried to call the Dodge dealer here at Espanola, and they just can't compete with the fleet sale price because the dealers who are on the state contract have fleet state contract pricing, and in the packet was the copy of the state contract, all the dealers who have state contract pricing. So now for this next item, thank you, Ursula. This is the so this is a vehicle, statewide price agreement. And then on the next one is a statewide price agreement for the tractor, which the only one in New Mexico is John Deere. So this is the quote for our tractor, and it's from Desert Green in Albuquerque, but we'll be getting the tractor from the John Deere company. It's a statewide price agreement.
Okay. Any questions or concerns?
Just a question for the utilization of your tractor.
Well, make our city prettier. Try and make our city prettier. Any way we can.
Where are you utilizing it at?
So our first plans for the spring are to plant trees. That's our first big project, is to try and plant trees. So we need to find where we can plant the trees and where the trees can be watered easily, or whether we put a drip irrigation or somebody waters them adequately. But that's one of our first projects, is to plant trees this spring. But we need to locate the place to plant them.
Is this tractor one of the compact tractors? Those
Yes.
And it looks like it's equipped with a backhoe also? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, we have the option to just have the front loader and then have the attachments. I was looking at like an auger attachment, but the auger attachment isn't like powered to powered like the same way that you would power an auger with a bobcat, where it's mechanically pushed down. So I just said, you know what? We have enough money to buy a compact tractor. We'll just get the compact tractor with a backhoe, and we don't have to use the auger, because we still have to dig a hole that's 3 feet wide by 4 feet deep. And the backhoe is going to help us do that way quicker than an auger attachment.
Very good. Councilor Ritchie, did you have another question?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
It looked like you're going to ask something else. Okay, that being said, it doesn't sound like we need a vote, so I think we're good. I think we're at everybody's favorite portion. I think we're at a date for our next meeting.
Madam Chair, for purposes of formalities, do Council Ritchie and myself need to rescind our motion since we have an active motion going for that? I think item number 4.
The truck
I'll rescind my motion just for purposes of formality.
Okay,
also. Second.
okay, thank you. Ms. Ursula, you got your calendar out for our next meeting? And it just for informational purposes, guys, the reason that we actually moved the meeting the last couple of times is just so that we could have the most current numbers for everybody that we possibly could.
Chair Benavides and counselors, we usually have our meeting the third Tuesday of the month, which is March 16th, Tuesday, March 16th of next month. So that's our scheduled meeting. If we need to move it, we can always do that. But for right now, that's our next meeting.
Will we have updated numbers on that date, Ms. Ursula?
We should, yes.
On that, because it's the 16th. Okay, great. That's good with me. Anybody have any objections to that date?
No, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Good night.
Good night. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.